Hey friends, it's Jenny. Welcome back to my garden. It is May 31st. I started not to do this video because things are sort of ugly. We've been out of town a lot, so there are weeds. I am still just now starting mulch. A lot of things are dying off from spring. Summer flowers are starting, so there are some ugly things. There are also some beautiful things. So I guess let's just get started. Hope everybody had a wonderful Memorial Day. I'm going to back up because I don't even think I've ever really showed you guys this section of flower bed. I'm just sort of sticking things here, dividing things. It's sort of like a plant hospital when things are not really doing so good. I've been sticking things here, but this hollyhock here, it's called a zebrina, and it seems to be thriving. I really struggle with rust on my hollyhocks. This one has a little bit, so I will spray that with some copper fungicide, but right now this thing is so happy. These taller guys here, this is larkspur that I transplanted from the front yard. I guess it is going to it looked like it was going to die for quite a few days. But I see little buds forming, so that's wonderful. This guy here is a balloon flower, and if I could keep Miss Poppy out of it, it would be standing more upright, so I probably need to put a little basket around that. But it looks very happy. Here I have a few. These are labeled as carnations on the seed packet. They are in the Dianthus family. Certainly not a carnation like you're used to, but they smell so really wonderfully spicy. They're good. My hands are filthy, so excuse me when I point to things. You're going to see dirty hands because I've been working in the yard until just 5 minutes ago. Here in the baskets, I have, it's not a basket, it's a milk jug, of course. I cut a little strip out so I could put dirt in there. I'm hoping this will prevent wash away from the seeds, and I have yellow and red zinnias planted here. Here's another giant balloon flower. These two, the one I showed you a second ago and this one, are twice as tall as the others. I would not have put them at the front of this border had I had known they were going to get this tall, because my others certainly are not this tall. So I don't know if I'll leave them or transplant them maybe. I also have that issue here. This guy, this spider flower, or cleome, is way taller than I expected. It needs to be moved, but it's starting to make flowers, so I don't want to move it now. I'll leave it and we'll watch it bloom. My peony looks sad and turning yellow and never made blooms, so I may move it. The allium are done, and I'm just letting their little seed pods dry and hang out there. I think they look so cool, like little fireworks. Look at my foxglove. It is going to seed, but look how tall it got this year. It was so beautiful 2 weeks ago, a week ago even. We've been gone, and I just haven't had a chance to get out here and make another video for you. Back here we have a dahlia. We have another dahlia that I transplanted, is not looking so happy. But the summer flowers are coming, guys. Here's a beautiful cone flower. It's going to be covered in blossoms. One thing I wasn't prepared for, these alliums, which I love, have a lot of foliage that has to just die. I can't snip it off because the bulb needs it for energy, and it's ugly, so I'm going to work on maybe planting some foxglove or other low-growing flowers around this to sort of hide that foliage for next year. In this area here, I've planted 1, 2, 3 lantana. That should fill in that area very nicely. That's pretty drought tolerant and should thrive until frost gets it. Here in the front, this is another wait and see flower. This will be beautiful once it comes on. It's just a very small perennial. This is a perennial geranium. I have one at the other end of the flower bed blooming, so I'll show you that. Sweet William is still blooming, although it has seen better days. We fertilized, and there are several things that did not like the fertilizer. Look how this just burned up the bottom of it. So poppies didn't like fertilizing. My catmint did not like the fertilization. Here is something I'm very proud of. This is lavender that I grew from seed, and it's my understanding a lot of people struggle with that, but I just did that with the winter sowing method in a milk jug. It worked wonderful for me, so I would suggest giving that a try. The iris, of course, are done. I leave that greenery, I'll get in there and clean that out as it dies away at the bottom, but I usually just leave it to fill in a hole. In the front of that here, I have a dahlia. Here in front of the bird bath, again, taller than I expected, is another spider flower or cleome, so I need to get that staked up. And I'll just probably wait till fall to move that perennial. There's a whole lot of mess here, and you can't really tell because I don't have mulch down, so I'll move down here to where I actually had mulch put down today. Slowly working on it, guys. I have never before purchased Proven Winners petunias, but apparently they're supposed to be like the best thing ever. And so I have a lot of bulbs in this area. I can't really dig and plant much here, and so we'll try these Proven Winners Supertunia Vistas and see how they do. I have Honey and Paradise is the pink one. This little guy here is a perennial phlox, very, very tiny. I don't expect it to bloom this year. Here again is another perennial geranium. I don't expect much from it this year either, so that's why I bought the petunias. I usually grow mine from seed, but the kind I grow have to be deadheaded. These Proven Winners supposedly don't, so we'll see how that goes. Right here and right here, a dear friend of mine at church, Miss Linda, gave me these. She calls them 9 o'clock bloomers. I guess most folks call them 9 o'clock bloomers. They're an evening primrose, and they will put on a bloom that will open just for one day, like a daylily, and then it will fall away. But they open at 9 o'clock every night. So when those start blooming, I'll get a cup of coffee, and we'll certainly come out here and watch one open together. So Miss Linda, thank you for those flowers. I appreciate it. This left me a spot here, which that terracotta pot was there, but I just didn't really like it. I've moved that, and I think I'm going to put maybe a couple of zinnias there or something. I don't know, something to fill that in bushy, because that allium's going to be done soon. Okay, on to the next, around the corner here. Brian's rose is filling out here. This is a candy cane striped rose. We've had maybe 1 or 2 little blossoms, but it should be kicking in soon. Here I have another lavender, much bigger. This is a 2-year-old plant that I grew from seed. The poppies are starting to make flowers, so that's exciting. I never did thin them. They're very thick. I probably should have thinned them. I think they would have done better. These are a lot shorter than they were last year, so maybe I learned myself a lesson here. I should thin my poppies, but we'll get some blooms anyway. Brian's lilies are starting to get lots of blooms on them, so this is going to be fun. We've got another couple of weeks before they start blooming. The pathway, you guys, can you tell I've been working on it from here up? I've been trying to get all the weeds, all of this creeping vines. Someone here long ago planted several little creepers. They are ornamental and they're pretty when they're blooming, but they're quite invasive, so I'm trying to get rid of all of that so I can really see what I'm working with. And I can tell over the years people have just sort of thrown the bricks back in place because the pattern is not what it should be. This is all wonky. Anyway, it's ugly for now, but this is going to be changing a lot over the next few videos. Here we have bee balm. There gives you a little better perception of how tall it is. This should be blooming soon. This blooms for several weeks, and the bees and the hummingbirds just love it. If you're wondering what this is, this was an invasive honeysuckle that was in this fence that had for years grown in the fence. And we did get it out, but those are chunks that are just in the fence. So without replacing this piece of fence, which we may do at some point, that's just what it is. So that's what it is if you wondered. All of this here are daylilies or ditch lilies, those little orange flags you see by the side of the road. Brian and I have collected these over time, and they're here. They all are budded up, so that's definitely a sign that summer's coming. More Sweet William here. Some of it is starting to dry up and go to seed. It gets ugly when it goes to seed, but I do always collect seed from it. And what I usually do is just let all of that Sweet William back there behind the headstone go to seed because no one really sees it. And then I collect seed from there. All right, let's hop up here into this flower bed and see what we've got. This is columbine, which I started from seed. I had intended it to stay here, but some of it started blooming. It's much bigger and taller than I expected, so I've moved it to the back part of the flower bed, and I will just slowly start to move this over there with that. This coreopsis is so pretty right now. The little lilac, I think I'm going to get bigger terracotta pots, but We've had it 4 years and it's lived on the patio the whole time. This is the first time it's been up getting sun all day, and it seems to really like it. So I think I'm going to up pot it so it'll be happier. We have a dahlia coming on here. I don't remember what kind. We'll see when it blooms. The phlox is really going crazy. Behind the phlox there, I have a coneflower. This is one that I took a chunk of and moved back here, but I forgot it's a shorter version, so I probably need to move that yet again. Sorry, little fella. Again, the alliums, I love them. I'm leaving them because I want the seed heads to dry, but this foliage, this is a mess. So I got to get lower growing plants in front of that for next year. I can't deal with looking at that. I have probably said perennial geranium 4 or 5 times already in this video, so I just wanted to show you this is a perennial geranium. It has sort of a mounding habit, and it does spread out 18, 24 inches. And I just love it. Hard to kill, it'll thrive, and as you can see here, it's covering up dying foliage of some daffodils. So that's nice. The pansies along the front of the wall, they've about had it. I'm gonna have to replace those with a summer annual of some sort. Here is another balloon flower, and you can see it's half the height of the ones against the fence over there. They're out of the same packet of seeds, so go figure. I don't know. More little chunks of Sweet William here and here. And I had so much trouble with seeds washing away, I decided to cut a little strip of milk jug and adhere it here and sow my seeds. That's a weed. And it looks like I have some sporadic germination. So anyway, this is flax, cosmos, maybe some zinnias. So that's what's going on here. You can't really even tell they're up here until you get up here with them. So yeah, I'm having some luck with that. I'll keep trying because this is such a sloped area that I can't really just direct sow on top of the ground. Here's another coneflower that is just covered in buds, and another coreopsis. I have removed the ugly cedar plank border from the back, and I have collected, I believe, enough stone to finish that border out. So part of the project is done. I guess half the hard work is done. The rocks are collected and the cedar board is up. So look, guys, at this phlox, how pretty. As the blooms are aging, they're turning almost solid white. I'll probably come out here in the next day or so and deadhead some of these. This phlox, actually, I'll cut it eventually all the way back, and I'll get another flush of blooms in another several weeks. The delphinium is about done, and the foxglove is going to seed, and I will leave it so that I can collect the seed. There's a little bee over there. Do you see it? Anyway, I will leave this foxglove so that I can collect seeds. The Merlot clusters, or the widow's tears, I think maybe they're about done. The greenery is starting to die off, but they're still continuing to open every day. They look like a little cluster of grapes. So neato. Here's another coreopsis, but I need to deadhead that one. It has seen better days, but it's definitely not done. It's loaded with new blooms, so I'll just get that cleaned up. Another clump of Sweet William here, hanging over the bird bath. Let's see. Guys, here is a whole cluster. This is some plants I'm moving from the front yard. This is called obedient plant. I don't know why. It should be called disobedient plant. It's very aggressive. But it looks like it took, maybe a couple of them died. No, it's alive. It'll spring back. Anyway, the hummingbirds, it's one of their very favorite plants, and so I wanted some of that in my backyard as well. I have a dahlia here and a dahlia there, waiting for those guys to come. I love my dahlias. Lots of space here. I will be direct sowing more seeds this week. I've got to get that done because we have mulch, so we've got to get that done, and I've got to get the direct seeding done first. Another coneflower. You guys, these handled transplant pretty well. Little guys look a little thirsty. Here is another phlox. Little tiny baby one. It's year number 1 for it, so maybe I'll just get 1 or 2 little blossoms. Here, guys, this is on the other side here. We can see so you can tell where I'm at. I'm back here behind the Rose of Sharon. These are little ferns. This specific spot, I'm going to turn around over here so you can see. This spot gets no sun ever, so I thought it might be a good spot for some fern. And so this little clump seems very, very happy. That it's not completely dead, but almost. I might need to find another clump and put it there, but in my troubled spots in this yard where I have rocks and just a lot of clay soil and not sufficient sunshine, I'm trying to stick native plants in there. So that's my plan. It's working so far. See, here's another tiny perennial geranium. Now, when this spreads out 18 to 24 inches around, that whole area will be filled in. And I really do like this little creeper. I didn't plant it here. Whoever built these rock walls initially, I guess, planted it here. It's pretty. Here's another lantana and another geranium and 1, 2, 3 more lantanas. So I am hoping that this whole area will be filled in with this lantana. So that will be nice. Here is the yarrow. If you remember, this was like a very dense, thick clump, and I spread it out a little bit. I've moved this one over, this one. Anyway, it seems happier. I could probably thin it even maybe a little more, but starting to get some blooms on it. Here's another, unfortunately, a coneflower that's a short one, so I'm gonna have to stick that somewhere. It's impossible for me to remember everything. I have so many plants. All right, the grass that still needs to be moved. Guys, I did get more done. This whole area is now gone, so slowly but surely, I'm getting to it. Here's columbine, and I'll move the columbine that we talked about earlier that's by the front of that wall. I'll get it moved over here eventually. This is a columbine that Brian bought me at Home Depot. Of course, it had been forced to bloom, and all the blooms were basically spent. So I cut it all the way back, and it's putting on another little flush of bloom, so that's nice. Of course, it's not as tall as the first flush was, but it's flowers nonetheless. Hummingbird was over here today, so that's nice. I'm still unsure what plants will go in this area. I'm working on it. We'll figure it out. This clump here, some of this is weeds, some of this is a perennial plant, and my plant ID app still will not tell me what it is. I grew it last year, but it did not bloom. Anyway, this is a wait and see, and I can tell half of it's weeds, but I'm afraid to do anything with it just yet. Here's a really troubled area of the yard. This is Rose of Sharon and this whole fence line. It's at a slope, and it's clay and lots of rocks. So I have successfully got some daylilies to get established here. I hope that they will bloom this year. We'll see. And I was able to get a bleeding heart bare root to sprout. I have another bleeding heart bare root there, but it did not sprout at all. This greenery here that looks dead, it really isn't completely dead. This is a native plant. This is phlox. In nature, it would be dying now. So that's really why it's drying up. I don't think that it's actually dead, and I think that it will come back next year. I have planted some perennial geranium that is a native, not different. It's different than the one I showed you earlier. This is just a native plant that would come up in the woods here in Ohio. So as I find these popping up, I'm bringing them over here to this fence line, and they will bloom. They've got a pretty little bloom on them. I'll just walk back there. Here's another clump of columbine, which I'll be extending. And again, here's one that was spent, and I trimmed it back, and it's blooming again, and it's pretty. Look at our soil, guys. Even though I amend it, there's so much clay. These little cracks, I'm just starting to put sand. New organite is great. Compost, anything I can put down in these cracks as they come, it'll help break this down. So it's a struggle. The pansies, guys, I think they've seen better days, and I might need to swap them out for a summer plant. Might deadhead them one more time and see what happens, but they're not looking great. If you recall from the very first video, if you saw the very first backyard tour that I did, this area here was just a washed out ditch, and we have now been adding dirt to it as we dig and amend. We're adding some dirt back here as we get a bucket full, and it's almost flat, so I'll soon be able to move these rocks out and it won't be a washout situation. Then I'll be able to plant some more flowers here. I'm thinking Tithonia, Mexican sunflowers. I think that is what I will plant there. There are daylilies right against the fence, hoping they will bloom. And then these 4 clumps are daisies that Brian and I dug up down at the fish camp and brought them home right here. So those are pretty. They are a perennial, so I'm not sure if they will bounce back or if they'll just sort of hang out and then give me flowers next year. So we will wait and see. And I'm very excited about things over here. These are gladiolus that I brought back from Holland, Michigan. I think they have maybe all sprouted. I got back here yesterday and tried to count, but I have gladiolus here, and then sweet peas, and then we have lilies and sweet peas and gladiolus again. So when this is open, this is going to be fantastic. The sweet peas are thriving. I have never, ever, ever had luck with sweet peas. You've got to plant them early, and the frost has always got them, but I think I nailed it this year. I don't even know if my trellises are tall enough. The lilies are coming along nicely. I cannot wait to see these guys bloom. Sweet pea blooms maybe next week, guys. All right, let me step over here. Here we have more daylilies waiting. Some of this greenery is dying. I just need to come out here and do some maintenance in the garden. We've just been out of town. There's some gladiolus coming up. This little clump of dying stuff here, these are irises that the neighbor gave me that were dug up from his front yard, so they look worse, but they will be fine next year. I'm gonna just let them hang out there and let that greenery die a bit more before I trim them back. Back here, I'll just walk back over there. It'll be easier to show you. Here we have the 4 blueberry bushes in the garden. We got lots of little blueberries, so we're waiting and seeing here. And tomorrow I will plant my peppers and tomatoes. They're definitely ready to go in the yard. Let's see. I have planted sweet peas to grow up this. They finally are taking, so that's nice. My onions seem to be doing pretty well. My lettuce looks rough, guys. I need to trim it. I took 2 giant Ziploc bags, I think they're like 3-gallon Ziploc bags, to church of lettuce the other day and gave it away. It's just more than we can handle, but I do need to get out here and trim a whole lot of it. It's handling the warmer weather good. I'm actually going to have iceberg. I've never been successful with iceberg before. I reckon I got it sowed early enough. These little tennis ball heads of lettuce. I definitely need to get out here and tend to this. I'm going to leave this open so that I'll remember to do that. Potatoes are looking good. Another round of sweet peas running up here. And y'all, I'm real excited about this fence line. This is where I just dumped a little bit of soil and a whole bunch of seeds. And we got lots and lots of flowers happening. The forget-me-nots are so beautiful. They're so very, very blue. Actually a true blue flower. This was our wedding flower. So Brian and I both really love the forget-me-nots. Look. Look how pretty. I don't know what these are. I hope it's pretty because there's a whole bunch of it. Anyway, look how neat. These are just little coreopsis. I think if this got full sun, that a lot more of these would be open, but they will open. They'll just open slowly. I'm going to turn around because I forgot to show you something. This happened since our last video. So this big bush in the middle is a hydrangea bush. My mom gave this plant to me. She wanted a quince bush, so we bought her a quince bush. And we dug up this hydrangea and put the quince bush in its place. The reason she wanted rid of this is because she had had it for 10 or maybe 15 years. and it had only bloomed one time. So she said, I bet you can get it to bloom, take it. So we did, but it definitely had issues. In the roots, there was a lot of gravel. I don't really know why that was. There was a lot of, looked like maybe little pieces of blanket. So I don't know if a squirrel or a dog at some point buried something in there. And then there were also some black roots, which I think were from a yew shrub that was on the other side of the fence from this plant. So I think it had a lot going against it. And it's not happy, but it is alive. And the roots are alive. And I got all that mess out of the roots that I could. And these are just little chunks that broke off in the process. And the little chunks seem very, very happy. So now I guess I have the makings of a new flower bed here. So I might, this will be eventually Brian will rebuild this wall. It's just, you know, project after project. So I'll probably come out here and make this a little flower bed. And then it's right here by my garden. To my garden I go to lose my mind and find my soul. In here we don't have much happening yet. This is just a few scallions that I had that I threw in there. And then I have some turnip greens and some collard greens in there. So I'll get my tomatoes and peppers in here tomorrow. So far, knock on wood, I don't have the cabbage worms on my cabbage, but something is eating at them, but not severely, and I don't see anything. So I'm not going to panic, and I'm not going to spray anything. I'm just going to let them go and watch. Cauliflower is starting to come along. And if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I told you how wonderful it was working, that I had painted some rocks red and it was keeping birds off my strawberries. Well, that's a lie. It doesn't work. It only works until your strawberries are really, truly ripe. And then the birds will still come. So anyway, that doesn't work, but it looks like I do have some strawberries to harvest. So I'll do that after this call. Oh, let's go this way. I have milkweed, guys. I've been trying to get milkweed to grow for 3 years. I had it down in the lower part of the yard, and I don't think it got enough sun. So I moved it back here, and now I have blooms. I also have some sort of eggs, but I don't know what kind they are, and I'm hesitant to get rid of them because, of course, the whole reason we grow milkweed is to get butterflies to lay eggs. So I'm going to try to research this a bit and see what this is. It's the first time I've ever had milkweed with buds on it, so I don't know. These little sprigs that look dead, this is more milkweed that keeps popping up in that lower part of the yard, and I'm bringing it back here and transplanting it. It doesn't like the transplant, but it eventually gets settled in, so that's good. Here's a quick peek at the lilies from the back side of the bench and the sweet peas. Things are going good, guys. Always still a lot of work to do. I'll keep you in the loop along the way. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week for a June garden tour. I've got to get in the front yard and show you some things. It's really pretty out there, but we're right on the bypass, and volume is going to be an issue. So I think I need to get a little microphone. I don't know what kind of trouble that's going to be. So we'll see. One last look at the little headstone. Ain't it pretty back there? Have a good evening, guys. I got to go fill my bird feeders and water some thirsty plants. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.